You're about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
What's up, Denise Simon?
Hello, Don.
How you doing, girl?
Woo! The only way I'm going to get through this is I had to take a 5-hour shot about a half an hour ago.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Denise Simon will be talking at the old 78 speed. Exactly. Hey, well, let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Drive Time SITREP. I am in my car, and my name is Don Neuen. Denise Simon is on the other end of this conversation. This is a unique radio show in that neither one of us are actually sitting in a radio studio. It's simply a phone call. It's a situation report. I've been at work all day. The only thing that I've been able to look at have been like Drudge Report headlines. I have not had the time to read anything. So I may be a lot like many of you in that you've been busy all day long and you might catch a snippet from a TV in the break room, or you might, check some social message or social media, or read a headline. Well, thank God for Denise Simon, because that's the antithesis of what she's been doing all day. She's in the background doing all.
Well, not today, but sort of, not completely today.
Well, you played some tennis, and that's all good and well. And did you go eat at Culver's?
I did not, because I had a tennis luncheon today, so I ate lunch at the club.
Oh, that's the excuse for not eating at Culver's.
Well, I mean, that's where I was. Okay, that's where I was.
Very lame, but we'll move past that and give you a pass. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to tonight's Drive Time SITREP. I'm in my car driving home after a long day at work. Denise is going to bring us up to speed. Denise, let's timestamp it and get after it.
All right. 8:42 p.m. Eastern on the 7th of May in the year of our Lord 2019.
Merry Christmas, Denise, and I wish
you too
a very happy Easter worshiper.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, or whatever it is now. Hey, yeah. We had Bill Donahue on Cowboy Logic Radio this week, and I acknowledged that he too was an Easter worshiper.
Oh, okay.
Do you know who Bill Donahue is?
Is he the sheriff?
Denise.
He's the sheriff?
Is he the sheriff?
Yeah, who's okay.
Bill Donahue was killed by Jesus on South Park during an Easter episode when Jesus threw a ninja star at him.
Way over my head.
Well, he's also the head of the Catholic League.
Way over my head.
All right, well, he's a good friend of Donna's, and we had him on the show because 2 weeks ago he was on with Neil Cavuto during the week in which Notre Dame was engulfed in flames. And Bill wanted to discuss all of the churches, the Christian churches, that were being attacked. And Cavuto hung up on him.
Oh.
He didn't want to talk about that. So we had Bill Donahue on, and we did not hang up on him, although we did tease that we were gonna.
Oh.
But we did not.
Okay. All right.
But he's a great guy, and given the fact that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton have labeled all of us not as Christians but Easter worshipers, I had to make sure that Bill, in fact, was one. So that was my point in bringing all that up. I can't believe anything is way over your head.
Well, that one was.
I'm disappointed. Bill has been killed on South Park for 13 years in a row.
Dude, I never watched South Park in my life.
Well, Donna and I do very rarely, but we usually try to watch it around Easter so that we can see our friend Bill Donahue appear on South Park.
Okay, good to know.
It's an awesome episode. It really is. And it's all in fun, and Bill takes it like that, and he's a good trooper. So let's talk. May we go into what's happening in Iran and Israel, and whether or not you think that we may see a significant war break out over there or not?
Well, the carrier does not have anything to do with Israel in the conflict that they just had. The carrier is because the Mossad gave us a tip that Iran is moving ballistic missiles into the Persian Gulf. Now, how accurate that is, I don't really know, but that is actually coming from CNN. And they generally have a pretty good foreign policy correspondent. But sometimes they get a little sideways with it.
Well, what do you think? I don't care what CNN thinks. I care what you think.
Well, the interesting thing is that Pompeo was to meet with Merkel yesterday afternoon or today. He suddenly canceled that confab with her and ended up in Baghdad. So what he was really doing in Baghdad, I've poked around, and all we're doing is saying, hey, we're standing with you and we'll help you protect your sovereignty and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then I'd have to ask the question, well, if Pompeo goes to Baghdad, where's Bolton? Now, my guess is somebody is, I would say someplace else. Shanahan is here, from what I can tell.
Somebody is someplace else?
Well, meaning that...
Hey, leave us hanging there.
I would say that maybe Bolton or somebody is in Qatar or Bahrain.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're essentially kind of doing is, I haven't seen where Bolton is. Shanahan is here. Obviously, Elliot Abrams is dealing with Venezuela, so we have to take him out of the equation. So I'm trying to figure out where else we might be putting some people to head off whatever Iran is doing. We might have a team that is talking to Israel. I'm sure of that. We have the big base in Qatar, which is why I think somebody is in Qatar. Or Bahrain, which would be essentially Saudi Arabia. So now the carrier is not going to be there for a couple of days. We're just repositioning it.
And where are we putting that carrier?
Well, therein lies yet another interesting question. Specifically, nobody is really saying, except that it's a full strike group with the bomber task force. So where we're necessarily going to put it, I would say someplace in the Persian Gulf. That's all I can really say. I mean, I've looked and I'm not getting the answers that I use, anything more specific. So I'm trying to assess it. And I'm not getting a favor.
Well, do us all a favor here. Let's identify the chess pieces in the region, if you don't mind. Who do we consider an ally, somewhat of an ally, and an enemy?
Well, at this point, there's really three enemies. There's Turkey, as far as I'm concerned, although we don't necessarily treat them as that way because they're a NATO member. There's Syria, and there's Iran. Everybody else is hanging with us, contrary to what CNN would say, because they were saying that Iraqis are not hanging, Baghdad's not hanging with us, which is not true.
And how's Russia posturing themselves through all of this right now?
I think Russia's a little on the busy side because they're still bombing the crap out of Idlib. And nobody's really talking about that either. You know, I got a couple of
talk about it.
Well, I got a couple of contacts in Syria, and virtually they're still Russia, not Assad, but Russia is still bombing. Why? I don't know.
What are the contacts in Syria saying?
Well, I mean, my contacts are, you know, the innocents, the white helmets, and they're just desperate. I mean, they're bombing hospitals. So now I'm getting videos where patients are running out of the hospitals in hospital robes down the street to get out.
And these are definitively Russian bombers?
Yes.
Russian pilots doing
this? Yes. As a matter of fact,
not being talked about.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, so Lindsey Graham, I think, put out a tweet today about it. He was the only one. Of course, I haven't been paying a whole bunch of attention. I was a little on the busy side for about 7 or 8 hours today, but he was the only one that I saw that even put out a tweet about what's going on in Syria.
I got to be candid. Lindsey is impressing me of late. How about you?
Well, it's really kind of fascinating, isn't it? And I heard a little interview this afternoon with Mitch McConnell, and we all were kind of come to hate Mitch McConnell. But Mitch McConnell, he's he's now calling himself the Grim Reaper. So essentially, and he did. He said anything that comes out of this house, we're just going to drop on the floor here in the Senate. We're not doing it. We're not going to be a socialist country. I'm not going to vote on this stupidness. It isn't coming over here. So he was taking a hard line.
Well, good.
Yeah.
It's about time they start acting like conservatives. But Lindsey Graham has put a smile on my face a handful of times, and I was extremely hard on him, 4 or 5 years ago. Really hard on him. But it's nice to see him doing some things that, that will make conservatives smile.
Right.
All right. Let's go back to the Middle East. What do you see happening 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months, a year down the road in the Middle East? What do you see happening?
I think we're going to be practicing a little bit of electronic warfare. We're going to probably be doing some minesweeping because the Iranians like to do that. So I think this carrier is really just a deterrent to show force. So I don't think we're going to light it up, actually.
Okay. This past weekend, I know you were getting them as I was, and that was updates from our mutual dear friend in Israel, who I think was actually in Denmark at the time, Hagit Canary.
Yes.
But she is an Israeli citizen, and I could tell you were getting these updates too, not only when she posted them in general social media, but I don't know about you, but I was getting private messages and text messages as well from her. Why don't you discuss for the listeners, some of the
here's how it all started.
What was going on in Israel this past weekend?
It all started because a Palestinian Islamic Jihad character was embedded with Hamas, and he was up on some kind of high point playing sniper. And he shot a couple of people. That wasn't by any chance
two of our congressmen that are in the House of Representatives, was it?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm sure.
So Israel began to respond. And then, of course, Hamas responded. But I believe that the majority of those snarky little missiles really belonged to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So what that's really saying is that Hamas is giving cover to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Now, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is an Iranian proxy. So those little missiles likely were provided by Iran and funded in part by Qatar.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important to try to put this in perspective a little bit. Many of these Israeli citizens have phone apps that are on their phones that warn them of incoming missile attacks.
Right.
I mean, not only that, but a lot of the stuff that Hagit was sending us was coming straight off of her phone.
Correct.
I mean, think about it. Wherever you're living, Atlanta, Tampa, D.C., New York, Los Angeles, Seattle, wherever you are, Dallas, Texas. Can you imagine living with a phone app that's going to tell you how much, when you get an alert that you've got 15 seconds to cover your ass and take cover?
Well, here's an interesting thing, though. About every 30 feet, there's a shelter. Did you know that?
Yeah. But
and they were so
think
running.
About how these poor people are living.
Well, I understand that, but it's not like they've got 15 seconds to go 2 miles. That's not how it works.
I get that.
Okay.
But that does not diminish the severity of what's going on.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Forever in Israel.
The other thing is because of the quantity, and I've heard everything from 250 to 700. I'm not sure I know what the real number was of the missiles. Israel opened up like another 20% of shelters. So that tells you that they live in that condition, sadly so. And then we've got people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, that continue to blame Israel.
Well, along with every liberal Jew and progressive that's in the United States. It's appalling. It's absolutely appalling. All right, let's move past this little rant. So you don't see any major military buildup or major strikes taking place in the near future with regard to Iran?
No.
And how they're saber rattling here?
No.
Well,
No.
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
If we were going to light something up, we would be putting all bases in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia would be on alert. Kuwait would be on alert. Turkey would be on. I mean, we would have every single place that we have over there within 1,000 miles on standby. I mean,
Gotcha.
Tarmac ready. I mean, engines running. I don't see that yet.
Okay. But there is a heightened alert. Would you say that?
No, I wouldn't go to that yet.
Well, good. I mean, that's what I was hoping to hear, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're on heightened alert. We are going over there to show power. We haven't had a carrier in the region for a while. In my opinion, we should never be without a carrier. I looked at where the carrier battle groups were last week, and the only one that we had out was the Lincoln. Pretty much every one of them is in port someplace, not even in the region. Most of them are home.
Right. Let's move down to Venezuela.
Okay.
Well, hold on. Before you go to Venezuela, all right, we got 5 more minutes, and then we got to go into a commercial break.
Yeah.
You want to go to Venezuela?
Okay. I thought you said hold on. All right. So we've kind of turned Venezuela over to Pence. And Pence is managing Venezuela with Elliott Abrams. Elliott Abrams is the lead envoy. So yesterday or today, Pence has made an offer to, let's see, not necessarily prosecute, because we have quite the list of some very nasty people in the regime. And if they decide to defect, we will not prosecute them. We have some others. I think there's about 30 others that we are going to personally sanction name by name by name, and rightly so. And then we will give some financial benefit and or asylum to any of the others in the military that decide to defect and feel like they need to get out. Now, I don't know what that number really looks like because, I mean, Maduro has his military, but his military force is really Cuban. But 25,000 of them. So I think the conversation that Trump had with Putin dealt with that, and Putin said that we don't want to get involved in Venezuela. But if Trump said anything right, I hope he said fine, and that's good. You just go clean up the mess that you created in Syria, and the next phone call you need to make is over there to Havana and tell them that they need to be pulling back some of their forces, some of their 23,000, 25,000, whatever that number is. Well, I don't know if he said it. I'm just hoping that he did.
All right.
Then we have to deal with what is called the collectivos. I think I've mentioned the collectivos to you before. Those are the little cowboys on the motorcycles, and they're all thugs. They're supposed to be community police people, law enforcement, which is crap. They're all armed, and the Venezuelans are terrified because they operate between being a police force, being mafia, being cartels, and being killers and extortionists.
Would you consider them to be bad hombres?
Yeah, I would say. And so
bad hombres.
How we deal with the collectivos, I don't know. In fact, a lot of them are former FARC, and you and I have discussed FARC before.
Absolutely.
Okay, so these guys are good at being little guerrilla fighters. So how are we going to deal with the collectivos? I don't know.
How many do we have any idea of a head count?
3,000-4,000.
Okay.
And they're just spread all over the place.
Right.
And then Putin sent in 100 or so of his personal militia, otherwise known as the Wagner Group, which are the paramilitary operation that he initially sent in when he decided to annex and take over Ukraine, and then Crimea, and then inch his way over to Ukraine. Well, he flew a whole pile of them into Caracas, and they are essentially the personal security detail for Maduro. And they're kind of interesting because remember back when General Mattis was still on the payroll, and we got into a big conflict with some Russians over there in Syria when we were protecting an oil field, and our guys called in and said, we have a problem with this Wagner group. And Mattis said, well, how many of them? You've only got 100. You guys can handle that. And he goes, no, they're about 400. And that's when Mattis said, kill them all. It's the same. It's the same people.
Just different people.
Correct. Same organization.
Because if Mattis said kill them all, that's probably what happened. All right. Well, hey, we got to go to break.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Drive Time SITREP. My name is Don Neuen. You got on the other end of this fascinating conversation the stellar Denise Simon. When we get back from the break, I'm going to ask Denise Simon to get into the weeds a little bit with Devin Nunes.
Oh,
find out
yippee
what's
skippies.
going on with him. You're listening to the Drive Time SITREP. We'll be right back.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Welcome back to the Drive Time SITREP, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Neuen. You've got on the other end of this conversation, Denise Simon. Before we went to break, I suddenly laid in the suggestion that Denise take us into a discussion about defined work and covert work. And as Dan Bongino says, Denise, we need the Devin Nunes translator to be able to understand and read between the lines on what he's saying. So let's go there, if you don't mind, and let's talk about some of the work that Nunes is doing.
Okay. Well, we have some very common names on the FBI side. We know about Lisa Page, and we know about Peter Strzok, and we know about Andrew McCabe, and we know about, all those people, including Comey. Okay. I would argue that we have some more FBIers that are not common. And I'm going to throw them out there for the sake of the listeners in case they want to do some work on these cats. And one is Mike Gaeta, Gaeta. Now, he is based in Rome. You see, you think FBI is only domestic, but it's not.
No, but it's fascinating that you bring up Rome. Fascinating.
And then we have George J. Ennis Jr. We have Alan E. Kohler, Kohler. And then we have Stephen M. Soma, Somma. So I've given you 4 new names of FBIers that are likely on Devin Nunes's short list. Okay, I can get rid of that piece of paper. Now, it has come to our attention that we have this cat by the name of Mifsud, Mifsud. I haven't figured out that name yet, but anyway.
Mifsud.
Hey, Mifsud.
Before you get into him, do you believe that he is a Western agent or a Russian agent?
Western.
Good for you. Good for you. Because everybody's trying to portray this guy as a Russian agent.
No, I don't believe it. I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same here.
He is not a Russian asset.
That's right.
And he has a long connective tissue to London and to Rome.
Yes. And who's a name that's been in the news quite a bit lately that you would like to just draw the attention of Rome, Italy?
I don't know who.
Big name in this whole Mueller crap, this dossier.
I don't know who you're getting at.
Papadopoulos.
Oh, Papadopoulos. Okay. Well, I was actually going to go there.
Good.
Okay, so Papadopoulos, he actually says that Mifsud is not FBI, he is CIA. And everybody is saying, no, he's FBI. No, he is, in fact, CIA. He goes back a very, very long way. In fact, he goes all the way back to Reagan. He actually did some work with Reagan. And pretty much every Republican president after that. His father-in-law, Mifsud's father-in-law, is Ray Klein, Cline, which happens to be one of my married names. Anyway, he was CIA. He's now dead, but nonetheless. Okay, so the CIA has held, and the FBI, mind you, have held several confabs in a place called Link University in Rome. Now, those confabs some of them can be on cyber, and some of them are just your normal meetings and blah, 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 blah. But Link University is very key to being a meeting place for our intelligence community, and especially with John Brennan. Now,
I am so glad that you've added his name to this conversation.
Okay. But
Denise,
it gets more.
You always impress me, but I'm super appreciative that you're digging into this.
Yeah, you should see my notes.
Anyway. But here's the thing. We should have been talking about this months ago. And I'm glad we finally are.
Okay, so Mifsud at one point was an advisor to the Clinton Foundation, by the way.
Correct.
And there was another person that was an advisor, contributor, and maybe even on the board of the Clinton Foundation, and had a deep association yet with another foundation, and that's called the Ehsan Dalal Obaid Foundation. Did any of that make any sense? Essam and Dalal. I think they're husband and wife, but I don't know. Their last name is Obaid, Obaid. Now, why would that be important? Because Ehsan Obaid's brother, Nawef, he founded what is known as the War and Peace Center at Link University. So now we can bring in a little bit of connective tissue with the Clinton Foundation. Nawaf Obaid also was very good friends and an intelligence associate of John Brennan. Okay.
Hold on. Hold that thought for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to remember something, and Denise will be able to expand on this much better than I can. So I'm going to throw it out there, Denise, and if you want to open it up a little bit more and unpack it, feel free to. But what you need to remember is there is a major difference between the CIA and the FBI. The CIA is not a law enforcement entity. They cannot get subpoenas. They cannot get warrants. They're investigative. That's it. They do not have any type of law enforcement power. Now, do you want to expand on that, Denise?
No.
All right, but that's a fair differentiating between these two agencies, correct?
Well, the FBI is kind of investigative too. If they want all these other kinds of things, they still have to go over to their liaison to the Department of Justice.
Correct, but the CIA can't do that.
Yeah, they can. They can go to the Department of Justice.
Well, let's take a FISA warrant, for example.
Right.
The CIA itself cannot obtain a FISA warrant.
No.
That has to be done through
because
FBI
they're an intelligence, they're a spy agency.
That's correct. So I'm going to throw one more comment out before I let you get back to what you were talking about. I am so glad, ladies and gentlemen, she brought up John Brennan. We have been beating the John Brennan drum for years now. And as a layman description, I want to suggest that John Brennan was nothing more with all of this that's been going on than Barack Obama's lapdog. And he used these connections. Yep. He used these connections that he had overseas with foreign intelligence to create everything that we've been dealing with. John Brennan is at the tip of the spear on this stuff. All right. That's my thought on it. Back to you, Denise.
Okay. Now, Christopher Wray, who's the new director of the FBI, gave some testimony today on a budget thing before Congress. And, of course, the whole conversation turned over to, does the FBI spy and what do you think about, Bill Barr and blah, 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 blah. But I would argue, and I've argued all along, that there were a couple of reasons why a file would necessarily be opened on Trump by the FBI. And I wrote an article over there at Political Vanguard last week because the jumping off point may have been a business associate of Donald Trump's by the name of Felix Sater. Felix Sater is a Russian. I think he's American now. I think he got his citizenship. But anyway, he was a shady character, and for decades he was a informant for the FBI. He did a little prison time and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so they may have pulled that file out and dusted it off and said, because Felix Sater had Trump Organization business cards and he had a place in Trump Tower. But now I got to add a name. And heck, let me get my glasses on for this one because I don't think I can pronounce it right.
Well, while you're looking for your glasses, I want to remind the listeners, none of what Denise just discussed with regard to Sater is illegal, nor would it ever warrant the spying on American citizens.
Okay.
Don't you agree, Denise?
I agree, but I'm just saying that, I mean, there was some reason for, well, I shouldn't say reason, but there, I would pull out a file. Do you know what I'm saying? And dust some things off.
Sure,
but there was another.
Lot more was done, and we got to ask ourselves, what the hell is Sater doing a U.S. citizen, if in fact he is?
Yeah, I think he is.
Why the hell would we make him one?
I have no idea. Okay, but the other cat's name is Al-Limzan. The last name's going to be a really Taktakhunov. Yikes. Anyway, the FBI has quite the file on him, and he was a gambling kingpin. And they had quite the file on him. Well, he also lived at Trump Tower. So I'm only throwing that out there because somebody's going to bring it up. And it could be the Democrats. And I don't want our listeners to be blindsided because they didn't heard of Alimza Taktakhunov or Felix Sater.
Well, the Democrats are grasping at straws. And again, somebody living at Trump Tower, there's nothing illegal about that. There's nothing nefarious about it. And that needs to be your response, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Bring me real arguments.
Okay. I'm just putting it out there because I don't want our listeners to get blindsided. Now, Stephen Halper is in fact a CIA asset. Now, there's a funky little, I call it a petty cash fund over at the Pentagon of all places. And Halper was paid well over $1 million, and it may be closer to $2 million in interesting payments for work going back several years out of this fund over at the Pentagon. And we also paid some money to our friend Nawaf Obaid, the brother who started the War and Peace institute over there at Link University.
Under whose presidential term were these funds distributed? Obama's?
Well, the most recent one was of about 430,000.
And that goes back to what year? 15? 2015?
Let me see if I still have it up. Let's see here. We paid him $200,000 in May of 2012. We paid him $200,000 in July of 2014. Scrolling down, we paid him $245,000 in 2015. We paid him $282,000 in 2016, and we paid him $130,000 in 2017.
Yeah.
Out of this funky little fund over there at the Pentagon. Okay. So, the other fascinating thing is that Stephen Halper, by the way, happens to own a ranch in Falls Church, Virginia. I don't think he's there. I think he's gone to ground someplace. He's under the protection of somebody. But then I found something really kind of fascinating, and this is a real sidebar. I kind of wish my dad was still alive because I'd ask him the question. At one point, Stephen Halper actually worked for the Palmer Bank out of Chicago. Well, my father happened to be, at one point in his career, president of the Palmer Bank, Florida. So that's just a whole sidebar. So I would like to ask my dad, hey, do you know anything about this Stephen Halper guy? But I can't do that now. Okay. Now, let's turn to London. I think we've handled Rome because that's George Papadopoulos in Rome, and we've got some FBI'ers in Rome, and we have this Link University in Rome. But let's go over to London, shall we?
Sure. You mean to more John Brennan connections and
yes.
Assets? Yeah. John Brennan. Let's make sure everybody's aware of that.
Okay. We have this ultra secret firm, and I mean ultra secret firm, by the name of Hackelut.
Well, it's not a secret anymore now, is it? Hackluit.
Now, this firm, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, doesn't matter, was created by former MI6 agents. And their client list is the who's who's of corporations, and they offer strategic intelligence to these top corporations globally. Now, they don't give normal off-the-shelf advice. They use a network of operatives across the globe. And so, remember we had this Australian High Commissioner from by the name of Alexander Downer that also crossed paths with George Papadopoulos?
Correct.
Well, he happens to be on the advisory board of this Hackelut ultra secret place in London. And he's been there since 2008. And that happened when he was the UN special envoy. Now, it did make some people in Australia pretty angry, and they wanted him to give up his position. Whether he did or not, I can't really tell. I think at some point he may have, but I can't be sure of that. So now this place would certainly be on Hillary's radar. It would be on John Brennan's radar, and it would be on Clapper's radar, just by virtue of who they are, because they're the piece de resistance of secret intelligence and having operatives around the world. It makes Fusion GPS look like something that was on Captain Kangaroo's show. All right? So,
we got any ties with Steele to this firm?
No.
Okay.
Now, yesterday, the Daily Caller...
outside of John Brennan. Because John Brennan most certainly has ties with Steele.
Correct. Well, and so does Mark Elias, because Mark Elias with Perkins Coie is the one that hired Steele.
Correct.
Okay, so Chuck Ross, whom I happen to know over the Daily Caller, a pretty good reporter over there, he decided he was going to go back and cultivate some of the Peter Strzok, Lisa Page text messages. And there was
his name again, because I want the listeners to jot that down. He is phenomenal.
Chuck Ross. Now, Chuck decided he was going to review some of these text messages. And so Peter sends a text message to little Miss Lisa, and it says, quote, "I'm beginning to think the agency got info a lot earlier than we thought and hasn't shared it with us," meaning CIA.
Yep.
And he says it might explain all these weird, seemingly incorrect leads all these media folks have. Would also highlight agency as a source of some of these leaks. So this came to the attention of Senators Ron Johnson of Wisconsin and Chuck Grassley of Iowa. And so what did they do? They sent a letter right on over to, I think, the Department of Justice, like, hey, what's up with this? Now, the interesting thing is that this text message was dated December 15 of 2016. There was another text message that said, quote, "Think our sisters have begun leaking like mad, scorned and worried and political. They're kicking into overdrive." Which now puts us right back to Brennan, doesn't it, of leaking stuff. And who was he probably leaking to? CNN. CNN was grateful, so what did CNN say? Hey, Brennan Clapper, we'll just officially hire you because you've obviously got some kind of inside track here. And then all of a sudden we get the Mueller report, and then Brennan goes, well, maybe, Clapper goes, well, maybe we got it wrong. Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the thing. And I don't want to sound like I'm splitting hairs, but this is important. John Brennan in December of 2016 was asked about if he had seen the Steele dossier, to which he responded no. But it's because he didn't see the Steele dossier. What he saw and what he knew he was well aware of, was the information that was in that dossier. There's a lot that took place there in December of 2016. One of which is Brennan saying, I did not see the Steele dossier. He didn't lie. He saw the information that ended up in there, and he saw it well in advance. Okay. And I bring that up, Denise, because as you well know, you got to read between the lines with these people. They are extremely crafty in how they word things. And Devin Nunes is trying to send messages out. He's trying to let people know what's going on, but he's got to do it in a certain way. Well, the flip side of that coin, when you get nefarious individuals, is they're going to do everything they can so that they can stand before Congress and say, I didn't lie. Well, Brennan is a liar, but he may not have lied when he said he didn't see the Steele dossier in December of 2016. He didn't need to. He saw all the information that was in it. Okay. Thanks to people like Nellie Orr.
Oh, by the way, speaking of Nellie Orr, and I want to say this before I forget, Little Miss Nellie happened to have an interesting employee at one time. You want to guess who that was?
An employee. No, but I guarantee you I've heard the name.
Lisa Page.
Yes. Yep.
Lisa Page worked for Bruce Orr at the Justice Department before moving over to the FBI.
Yep. I think Nellie Orr is in deep, deep doo-doo. I think she's going to be one of the first casualties of this whole thing. I think they've got her lying to Congress already.
Okay. I can't speak to that, so I don't know.
Well, she was asked who saw information or who she gave information to.
Right.
And she said, no one. Now, her husband, Bruce, was excluded from that through a very thin veil of, husband-wife marital protection with regard to stuff like it. And it's thin as rice paper.
Yeah, because any emails,
stories.
Right. Any emails that said, "Hi, honey."
Exactly. Let me do a time check here, Denise, so we don't run out of time. 3.5 minutes is what we've got.
Oh. Well, the moral of the story here is I've given some additional FBI agents, and now I have put Brennan square in the center, the core of this wheel. I don't know where Clapper necessarily.
Let's call it what it is. It's a violation of United States citizens' rights. That's what Brennan's been doing.
I don't know where to put Clapper. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the law. So I can't speak to that. It would appear so to me, but I can't make a absolute on that one.
Not yet, you can't.
Correct.
Opera's
You know
not
me.
over.
You know me.
I know you.
Unless it's an
I know.
absolute and it's fact and I can prove it, I ain't going there.
All right, well, hey, finish up with Nunez. I love this guy. Focus
Okay,
on
well,
Nunez for the
anyway,
next minute and a half.
What Nunez is doing is he's putting the timeline together. And so he's wondering how somebody over there in Rome, somebody over there in London knew about Hillary Clinton's emails before anybody else really knew about them to even ask George Papadopoulos. So what he is doing very carefully and cautiously, he's putting an awful lot of critical thinking to this, is the entire timeline. And I can't do that. I don't have the resources of the people that he has in order to lay over these timelines. I mean, we get snippets of stuff all the time.
Wasn't Nunez recently brought to the White House for a meeting?
I don't know.
I heard someplace, it may have been on Bongino's show, that recently Nunez made a trip over to the White House. And there's only one reason why Nunez is heading to the White House right now. And that's all of this stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Drive Time SITREP. We're going to have to wrap it up. I want to encourage you to go to Denise Simon's personal website, founderscode.com. At that website, you can check out all of her stellar hard work that she does. She posts articles any place from 2 to 6 a day. And if you sign up in the email subscription box, you'll get those articles sent direct to your email inbox. It's a great way to stay up on top of things. If you like this show, ladies and gentlemen, we encourage that you tell your friends and your family about it. Again, it's unlike any other radio show. I mean, Denise, I just turned left and I'm headed south on Highway 27 going to my farm. And we just feel like this is 1 hour a week that we want to give you something unique, something that not other radio shows
the big
do.
thing is that we get to spend more time with the questions in all of this discussion than Nunez gets in the 90 seconds that Fox gives them.
That's correct. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back with you next week. Denise, we got to run. You got to take it home for us.
All right. Thanks for listening, and God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.